Hi, this is Shubham Tiwari,
And hi, this is Nilangan.
and we welcome you to the Sales Panel discussions where we speak with experts in B2B marketing, SaaS marketing, ABM, and revenue operations. The show is brought to you by Sales Panel. At Sales Panel, we help businesses qualify their inbound traffic and help them understand what is an opportunity for them. It consists of helping them score leads and visitors using our real-time scoring models and helping them track their target accounts on the websites. Now, moving on with today's episode. Today's guest is Sheth, who is the AVP Content and Brand Marketing at WebEngage. Forum believes that stories told for humans must be told by humans. That's why she tells emotive stories built on the basis of bravery, data, and human psychology. We'll ask her later about this. Forum helps brands across marketing, culture, talent building, everything that requires honest, believable stories to be told through various formats. And among other things, Forum loves to read books, ride bikes, design tattoos, and collect mugs. Great to have you on the show, Forum.
Thank you so much for the amazing introduction, Shubham. I must say you've done your research quite well. And it's my pleasure being on the show today.
We are very grateful to have you. So, Forum, let's begin. Let's take the cue from the introduction itself. You tell stories based on, as you mentioned, like bravery, data, and human psychology. So please help us understand your process, how you let's say weave data in your content, and what do you mean by this?
Right. That's a very interesting question, Shubham. I would like to start with an article that I read. It's a pretty old article at HBR, Harvard Business Review, right? They published an interview with Robert McKee. He's a renowned writer, screenplay writer. And the title says storytelling moves people. And I believe it definitely does, right? And that's exactly why I say that, and I go by that as well. Right? That's one of the articles that has kind of stood with me among the many articles that, I've read on the internet as well. But when we come to the process, right, it's not as easy and simple as it sounds, but you can definitely make it into one if you become consistent with it, right? So your question, says that, how do you weave data into it, right? I would say that, but first of all, right, before even worrying about data, start off with understanding the human psychology. And I think that's also a biggest source of data, right? There's a ton of articles, books, and a lot of webinars, podcasts being produced around human psychology. And of course, it's a subject in itself, right? Where people also, get certified in, get degrees in, right? While of course not every marketer might be a certified psychology student, I think that a lot we can rely on the data that's available and produced by psychologists as well, right? Which helps you understand the human psychology, the consumer behaviorism as well, right? As to what are people reacting to, how are they reacting to, what is the next big thing that they would be looking forward to, or as a company or a service provider, you would want them to look forward to, right? I mean, for example, take metaverse, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've got everyone talking about it. So I think that's one step to start with. Then comes the data around understanding your customer, right? I mean, that's where the entire gameplay of CDP comes in, right? Your customer data platform, where you dig up and understand what's happening to those hundreds, thousands, millions of your users, build cohorts, and then decide what should be the next best piece of content that should be delivered to each of those users in a particular cohort as well, right? Because probably maybe looking at each of our backgrounds right now on Zoom, Nilangan might love a content piece that's something to do with, say, Maldives, or now that the world opening, he might want to have something sent to him by, say, a Go Ibibo or somebody else around next trip, right, now that the world's opening. Looking at your background, Shubham, you probably might want to get a next update from somebody like a bookstore or somebody art gallery as to what's the next best thing. Now, right now it's all visible, right? But there's also a blend where comes in the digital footprints of a user, right? And how do you do that? I think that's where CDP and other platforms come into picture, and you need to make the most of that data as well, and then tie it back to, I mean, I'm a strong believer of real life stories, right? So tie it back to analogies. I think that article at HBR that's where, he also, Robert, that's what he speaks about, right? That you bring in real stories where, either, you induce fear among people so that they become curious about it, or you induce something empathy led. That's my take. You can bring in empathy so that people think that, hey, what's going to happen next? And I'm going to read about it. And again, that's where, data comes in. Look into history, look into what's happening in the current market, what's happening in the economy, what's happening across the world, right? And finally, what's your competition doing as well. So I think overall, that's where data plays a huge role when it comes to storytelling as well. So it's like a, if you're able to crack it, it's like a blend of being creative and plugging in the right insights from the data that you have at your disposal.
I think that's an excellent strategy. I think people are some with content marketing, people get a bit lousy with data. Like they would just take out surveys and like reports and directly link to them, or just talk about that, use that as a starting point. But what you're saying is that using your own data, that's from like readers and visitors from your website, or just your customers if you're a product website.
Absolutely. And most of that, right, just like you said, yes, I think the most easiest effortless way is that, go to Statista, pick a stat and start your article, or whatever content with that. Why not, I'm not saying that don't talk about those stats, do involve them. I think that also adds to the real life credibility and something worth believing as well. Probably instead of that, you could also go ahead and talk to your customers, right? Ask them whether they do belong to those, say, 20% of XX users who want personalized messages, or who want, messages at this time of the day. Go ahead and ask 10 of your customer, spokes, managing certain campaigns, or as a consumer, right? Go ahead and ask them that, maybe run a survey for that matter. So it's all available, right? And you can, just like you correctly said, Nilangan, go ahead and take a step forward beyond what's just available readily as well. And I think there's a lot of data that you can make sense of.
I think because people nowadays follow a particular template where just when they start an article, or when they're in somewhere in the middle, they would just link to a report that's already existing. So since everybody is doing it, it's like a template, so people might not, the readers might not be that affected by it. But when it comes to real data from your own customers, that might be more helpful. Okay, so I think following through, I would like to know more about your content strategizing process at WebEngage, like from picking keywords, like if you're doing SEO from picking keywords to creating the content, and what goes in the middle, and like publishing and all. And also I would like to know, like, how much is this SEO, like what you do, how much is this SEO versus other types of content that you create?
Right. Valid question and interesting one as well. Again, I would say, you cannot really get away from SEO as much as you'd want to, if you want to be creative as well. But then there's a way to it, right? Of course, at WebEngage, we do focus quite a lot on SEO. But on the other hand, we also focus quite a lot on something that nobody might have thought of writing, right? So I'll give you a few examples. Now, you know that the Black Friday content, right? Everybody writes, 10 campaigns you should run during Black Friday. Come October, November, December, everyone starts writing, about
Christmas.
those campaigns, and, Christmas campaigns, and so on and so forth. You'll notice something on the WebEngage blog. We do not have a blog post like that. Of course, we could have done it quite easily to gain those extra few visitors during that quarter or so. What next, right? Are they going to be the ones staying back with us for a longer period, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, what we have done is we created a festive guide, which is like a guide that marketers can use throughout the year, regardless of any geography you're in. So say if you're in India, you're marketing to Indian customers rather, and you want to run a Raksha Bandhan campaign, I have a strategy for you in that ebook. say you're sitting somewhere in the US celebrating or strategizing also some campaigns for Black Friday or say Christmas, I have a strategy for you as well. So more or less, you see how we're thinking through our content strategy. We don't just go with everything that has to do with SEO, but we also try to create a balance between SEO and something that's quite unique, yet still staying true to our core, which is about educating people and not just creating content to drive those extra few visitors or extra few leads, which might never convert into customers as well, right? So I might as well maybe have a student read my guide and then go join a company and then say that, hey, you know what, I read this guide at WebEngage, and I feel that they do understand what we require as a business. Why don't we try WebEngage as a platform, right? You're eventually also creating advocates to your content. So I think that's how we put together a strategy in terms of content at WebEngage.
Okay, yes. Okay, so yeah, I think what you said made sense, mainly about the festive offers and stuff, because also we often see that like these B2C promotional strategies are used in B2B businesses. Like B2B businesses have a process of buying, they have a particular buying window, and like if you are selling a Black Friday deal, that might not be that helpful as well.
Yep, for sure, right? I mean, a customer might sign up for those
Yeah.
$2 off that you give during a quarter, but what's the guarantee that the customer is going to stay back even after 6 or 7 months of that offer, right?
Yes.
Probably, maybe not, maybe. Of course, there are multiple factors that come into play, and you of course prove your worth and you deliver to the best in terms of product and services. But again, right, that customer might have been in the first place somebody who might not even be able to afford your services or product post that discounted period as well.
Yeah. So I was reading that you have like 100,000 viewers per month on your website. Is that correct? On
We
your content?
have somewhere close to that, I would
Yeah.
say. We do
Yeah.
have, of course, I mean, it's not always, something that would
Yes.
stay consistent. There's always a
Yeah.
downfall and every time, it's like a wave, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys would definitely understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there. And there are several mechanisms which make that work as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to know, like for example, in SEO, people who are coming to our website, they are just trying to read content. Like, do you have a strategy where you retain these people and like maybe convert them into subscribers to your newsletter or leads? So how does your process look like?
Yeah, you got that absolutely correct, Neil. Because see, everybody visiting through an SEO-led strategy might not be a potential customer always.
Yeah.
They might be just looking for some information. Some of them might be looking for some educational purpose, right? Some
Yeah.
of them might be actual target audience that you might want to sell to, right? So the first and foremost is, of course, getting them to sign up for a newsletter. So you will see that on our on the WebEngage blog, right? There is a
Yeah.
sign up availability where you can, just drop in your email ID and then belong to our newsletter community as well. Besides that, what we also do is that people coming and reading our blogs, we have multiple CTAs plugged in, relevant ones. Of course, we're not
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
going in CTAs. So we're very mindful of what sort of CTAs are dropped into a particular blog post. And what we try to do is make them also browse to some of our other pages, which might be relevant to that particular blog post as well, right? Which might, to the audience that's actually relevant, and it's a target audience for that matter, like potential lead, right?
Yeah.
We try to take them to particular pages where they would find something valuable in terms of a product and services as well. So say for example, somebody came looking for an email marketing best practices, came through a keyword where it said email marketing best practices. What we do is, we have a CTA that says that, hey, do you want to check out how email automation can make your life easy, right? And you
Yeah.
take them to the email page, while also, that you see that the place says that how do you actually have email as a part of your multi-channel strategy. So that's where you also kind of, you put that thought in, right? That, hey, you know what? don't just look at email, but have a look at what's happening across, right? And you can do better with your audience and your conversions and user engagement as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of guides readers from a particular piece to the next, and so on and so forth. And now when the person goes on a particular channel page, the CTA might be completely different, right? You basically pulling the person from top of the funnel to finally the bottom of the funnel and gradually also convert. Of course, the journey might differ from a user to user, right? Somebody who's like a hot lead who might have come reading about email marketing. Say the person search for email marketing tools rather, right? Might be very beneficial lead, potential lead, right? So then the journey might be quite smaller, the cycle, right? From potential visitor to a potential lead to a conversion funnel, right? And somebody might take maybe more than a quarter as well. But the entire importance where we pay attention is that how do you still stay in their mind, right? The brand recall stays back, and that's done via educational inspirational content and not just content being created just for the sake of it.
Let us talk about your journey for you. Started in 2015, right? Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I did start in 2015.
Yeah, you started as a content developer in 2015. And now you're the AVP of content and brand marketing. So I mean, of course, you have gone through the grind. You have learned many lessons. Yep. So please tell us about how can SaaS companies whose content, let's say, may be plateauing, because they may have a good strategy, but at the end of the day, it may not be let's say going forward with a certain pace. So what advice would you give to them?
Sure. Actually, a very nice question, because personally, I have faced this in my career as well. All right. What happens is, we as marketers and marketing teams are usually in a rush always, right? I mean, marketers equals to hustlers when you look at an organizational structure as well, right? Everybody in an organization knows that marketing kuch na kuch to karega, naya karega. That's also the expectation, right? When it also comes to sales and marketing, it's always about what new are you doing to drive me leads, right? That's always the question. But I think one very important thing that everybody, every marketer and any marketing team at any organization needs to understand and let it sink in, as much as, difficult as it might sound, or maybe somebody might just call me crazy for saying this out loud here on this particular episode, is take a pause, stop that rush for a moment, right? Let the marketing team come together, think through, look what happened in the past, look at data, look at what you produced, right? In terms of content, your lead gen magnets and so on and so forth, right? Rely on the historic data, look at what happened, what is it telling you, right? It might be shouting at you that, hey, stop doing this, or hey, do more of this, right? But you will only get to know that when you take a pause without worrying about my competition is doing that and I need to do this, or this is what everybody's doing, this is what's trending, and so I also need to do this. I think that pause, I would like to call it a marketer's pause, is very important. Where you kind of actually sit and judge yourself based on data and everything that happened, and then try to figure it out, right? What were the best things, things that worked, things that didn't work, and things that can be improved, right? So the three phases that hey, what didn't work, let's stop wasting time on it, right? You might be writing a piece of content where you've been working on scaling it up, say a particular say a particular series of social media posts. You might be, your team might be working on it every week, more so than not, right? But you might realize during this exercise, the marketer's first exercise, that hey, you know what, this series was not even forget any visitors for that matter, even brand recall. This has hardly gotten you 5 likes through the series of say 4 weeks or so. Why are we even focusing on doing it, right? The second bit of it, something that really worked for you, right? Scale up on those. You might not be scaling up on those because you thought that maybe you assumed it to be not working, or you thought that, hey, this could be a very common piece of content, right? And the final bit is the areas of improvement, right? That's where the learning also comes in. While doing this marketers pause activity, you realize that there could be several gaps that you might need to fill as well. So for example, it could also be something as simple as, fixing up all your meta across the website, right?
Yeah.
It can add up to a bigger impact. One featured image not rendering. Right. So I think it's simply when, say, we'll just take a simple example, right? You're publishing a blog. Say you have your CMS as WordPress, right? There is a meta description, there is a meta title, there is a meta featured image, right? So these are elements of SEO basically, where you put in the right keywords in the title, you frame the right URL, you put in the right featured image, right? Because when you're going to distribute, when the distribution play of content comes into picture, right? It's the URL that's going to take you places, right? And you need to be very sure about what goes into each of these elements of your SEO setup as well, right? While putting your content on the back end of your CMS. So that's where it's essential to focus on those, something as simple as what will that featured image look like? If, my title of the blog for some reason, went beyond the best practices, it went to certain characters, how can I still retain the best practices to have my article ranked via getting the perfect and a short URL for my blog post, right? That's what meta is all about as well.
What I was saying was that I had a follow-up question. You mentioned about having different CTS based on like the type of content people are consuming. So are these like dynamic for each individual blog post, or like you have a particular category based, they are segmented based on categories or like themes of the articles?
Well, yes, it's a mix of both, I'd rather say. So there are certain pages, not just blog posts rather, but even certain pages where we do have dynamic CTAs, right? So say, for example, somebody visited our email page, going back to the same example, the person might get a CTA curated around email automation along with other channels. Even though the person visits any other pages of the website. That's where the entire game. So we kind of try to use our own product feature there, right? The web personalization feature, which allows you to also, put in dynamic folds to your, web pages as well. That's one set of it. And on certain blog posts, we also have those static CTAs, which might be universally applicable to anyone and everyone as well, depending on the relevance of the content as well.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, I think that works better than like, I think most blogs have a system where they have one city across the whole blog, like across the whole content channel. Okay, so moving to my next question. So can you share a story about a particular type or piece of content, or maybe like pieces of content that has brought you significant results in terms of lead generation for WebEngage? Maybe one story, or if you have multiple stories like that, you can also share those as well.
Sure. Well, there might be multiple, but we look at maybe a couple of them to start with. One being, like I mentioned, right, the festive guide. I mean, it was, in fact, that was also, by the way, a result of the marketers pause. We did take a pause during, the last, when we did publish it, right? Right before that, we were contemplating, what next could be done as well. And, everybody's going to start writing about the Black Friday thing. So what do we do differently? We actually went back and, took a look at what's happening and what should we do next. So we realized that while it might seem like, guides are no more a lead gen tool, trust me, my data says they still work to quite an extent as well. So the festive guide has been one of our top contributor to driving leads as well, because it gives you actual actionable strategy, right? Which our target audience, WebEngage's target audience, can put into action, right? We're talking about how you can do multi-channel campaigns. Again, ties back to the WebEngage product as well, right? Very subtly, but it does, right? And the person can also come back and always use it, or might as well, look for how they can implement a particular strategy through the WebEngage platform, right? So that's where it did, and it has been still, it's over a year that we publish it. It's still one of our topmost downloaded guides on the, brand entity, that's our website. The second thing, impact stories, which are nothing but customer case studies, right? So we've kind of named them into impact stories because it's all about how we've been able to make an impact for our customers, followed by helping them make an impact into their business and their end user, right? So these have been, because these are also one of the most credible sources, right? Where you have customers giving you a thappa stamp, telling that, hey, we use WebEngage, we're happy with it, and this is what we experience with WebEngage, right? So
Yeah.
case studies / impact stories have been one of our topmost lead gen tools as well, followed by some of our solution pages. So we went a little deeper into every industry specific content, where we build, say, WebEngage solutions for EdTech, WebEngage solutions for OTA, so WebEngage solutions for so and so industry, basically. And that delves deeper into use cases, into reading material, into ready to use strategies, and then eventually motivating people to convert into a lead as well, right? So we've gone as much deeper into, say, for example, our EdTech solutions page. We've also categorized into those sub verticals, right? So say pre and K-12 learning, online test prep, upskilling. So these three, have their individual pages as well. And based on that, while building these pages, what we also did is we created different master packs, right? It was like a bundled resource, downloadable resource, where you have a view into the trends and benchmarks for user engagement in a particular industry, a booklet of, say, 5 to 6 customer stories, a product brochure as to how WebEngage can play a role into your industry and helping you scale up your user engagement and retention, followed by a couple of other help guides as well. Now, what we also did is we converted them into standalone hack books for our lead gen campaigns, right? Performance campaigns. And these hack books have been also, one of the top most contributing resources for us. So I think these are some of the many contributors that, I would rather say levers that, keep the engine of lead generation running as well.
Right.
Okay, so I think maybe by hack books you mean that you repurpose content that you have for solutions.
That's right.
And
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's a pretty interesting strategy, something everybody can look at.
Yeah. So,
Okay, so Shubham.
Yeah. So, Forum, what are your tips for laying a very strong content and brand marketing foundation from the get-go? I'm asking this question because there will be people who want to emulate your journey, because you have grown considerably in this space within a very short period of time. So, is there a playbook which you use? What kind of tips would you give?
Right. I think I usually think, playbook is a very loosely used term in our industry. I'd like to believe that there's no set playbook that suits everyone, right? There's no one size fits all. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that, while we're doing this episode, you have a reason why you're speaking to people, right?
Yeah.
Now, that could be one bit of it, but you're doing something unique with it, right? Maybe say a couple of speakers and, moderators and so on and so forth. I'm sure you had a different thought perspective. Now, many people are doing the webinars, right? So how do you make it unique? So one point coming back to the playbook is that you build your own playbook, right? You start with, of course, the fundamentals of marketing, the fundamentals and the basics of a particular requirements of every business and its vertical. And then you build on basis of that. Now, just like you said, right, the reason, and I'm so grateful that I've got these chances and, have gotten to jump up in the ladder in a very, minuscule duration as well, rather, is because I kind of kept building on what I learned, right? And also kept creating and adapting to that playbook. It's like you cannot have a set playbook that helps you for ages, right? You have to keep going back to it every few quarters.
You have to be adaptable. Correct.
To it, and then you go forward from that. But two things that you can always remember is that one, like I've been obsessed with, is you are defining everything, keeping in mind that there's a human at the end of the spectrum, right? Consuming your content, consuming your product, consuming anything and everything that you're laying out in the market, right? So the follow-up to that is that whenever you're putting a strategy together in marketing or writing content, right? Put yourself in the shoes of the one who you want to consume your content, right? Say I'm writing. So a good thing is to also define your audience into 3 categories, right? Say CXOs, managers, and operators. If you have that clarity, right, who am I writing for? You'll always write in a different level of maturity as well, right? Your content for somebody who's a beginner audience for you versus somebody who's a decision maker will be completely different, right? So that's something that you need to remember, that define your audience and know your audience. That should be a major part of your playbook, right?
Right.
And then finally, of course, like you correctly said, and you've mentioned as well, is rely on data. Now and again, rely on data always, and take a pause to do so as well. Don't do it on the go always, right? Take that marketer's pause, make it a part of your playbook, as an important part of your playbook, and have that time for you and your team, whether it's a CMO leading a team or an intern, right? Give everyone that time collectively. And trust me, you'll come up with the craziest of ideas, right? You've been seeing that SaaS is becoming all the more non-boring, right? Less boring. Everybody's doing so much unique, whether it's, fundraising announcements, product launches, or anything else for that matter. How do they do that, right? You'll observe that most successful people always take a pause when they come up, before, they've come up with something, phenomenal. So make that a very essential part of your playbook as well. Besides that, keep developing on the fundamentals of any vertical that you're into, whether you're a T-shaped marketer or somebody who's into a, overall charge like a CMO. Build on the basis of data always.
Forum, what do you think is next for this industry? Like, how do you see content growing, and what's next usually?
Right. I think your question is that what is the next thing in the marketing / content arena, right? I believe that video marketing I think it almost started during the pandemic, and it's going to scale from there, because I think there's so much reading material happening as well. People do need that consumption where they're on the go, and you can maybe hear or watch something, right? So podcast, video marketing, these are going to be the next things that a content team, a marketing team can leverage. Besides that, community, I think you guys must agree, would agree. Well,
completely.
Right? There's so much happening. You'll need people. It's like we're going back to that age of
tribes.
Yeah, exactly. The tribes. You got that. That's exactly what I was going to say, right? You'll have to build your tribe. If you do not, you're going to fail, because people, if you really see, while of course we're advancing into technology, we're advancing into AI and metaverse and everything, it's still going to be operated via people, right? No matter what, and no matter how many tools come into play, right? You will have to have, and you will have to trust in the traditional word of the mouth play, right? It could be in digital formats then. It could be online reviews. It could be some shout outs on social media, or say maybe somebody also shouting out in metaverse at a coffee table, right? Saying that, hey, you know what, I'm using this tool, and you can benefit from it as well. But it's ultimately going to be that tribe, like you rightly said, which is going to build your credibility, which is going to build your brand, and building that group of evangelists, advocates for every brand is going to be very important. And content is going to play a big role in that, right? You will have to have the right set of emails. You will have to have the right set of stories to let people also believe in you and then join the community, right? Everybody needs a reason. I mean, there are hundreds of communities also upcoming, right? I think in the past 1 quarter or so, I've been seeing everybody is building community, right?
Yeah, I think this is the new thing. Everybody's trying to get their hands on new community.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing, by the way, because it also says that it is the next big thing, and you should believe into it. But how you build it and how are you going to take it further is going to be all the more important, right? Because every trend, as we've seen, right, has its own top, few successful brand names, or the makers to the top of the list.
Right.
And there are people who kind of, get they are left behind in the journey towards jumping on the bandwagon as well.
Right. So Forum Sheth, thank you so much for your time. You have been quite generous with giving us your time, and anything you wanted to talk about which we missed out on during this interview. Now's the time to do that.
No, I think it was lovely. And first off, hats off to you guys. Your questions were amazing. Really lovely questions. I mean, just gave me a lot of joy. And I knew that this conversation is going to be amazing with you guys. And I would like to just wrap it up with saying that, I mean, look at the trends or what's next. And, what's the most important thing. I would always say that storytelling is the thing. Whether you're going to write an engineering story or a marketing story or a product story or a brand story, right? Storytelling always moves people, like going back to the HBR article title, right? It has so much strength if done it right and along with the basis of data and be bold enough. I would tell everyone, right? Be brave enough to also put some of your failures, some of your real life things. That makes it more relatable for people and more believable as well, right? Because there's so much content around. People are smart enough to identify fluff in a tree, right? You cannot fool your audience anymore. Even a 15-year-old kid is equipped with so much knowledge.
Correct.
You just cannot write anything and everything for any set of audience for that matter, any demographic for that matter, right? So I think be brave enough to tell real stories, and that's what will give you great results.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks again, Forum. And thanks to our audience for sticking with us. We'll see you in the next episode very soon. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me here, guys. Thank you.